All right, we'll give it another minute before we start.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Today we are doing chapter 28. We're continuing verse 13. It's a wonderful February 22nd of Wonderful Monday and the 10th day of Adar. So it's a lot. I believe today we have a lot of Chumash. There we are. I believe today there's a big Chumash and Tanya, so we may not do every Rashi, but we should get to a lot of them. Vasisa mishpitzais zahav. You shall make settings of gold. Today we're going to be talking about the chayshin. You can see the picture up, what the chayshin looked like. Maybe let's get a colored picture. Right, here's a colored picture of what the chayshin part looked like. It's actually not, the first Rashi says that this is actually not the main place where we talk about the chayshin. It's really just talking about the chayshin because we talked about the ephod in yesterday's chitas. So anyhow, it should have settings of gold. As you can see, the stones are set in gold. Ushtei sharsharais zahav tar migbolis tasaisam maase oive avais v'nasatas sharsharais avais al mishpitzais. Okay. The two chains of gold, of pure gold, you will make them attached to the edges after the manner of cables, and you will place the cables chains upon the settings. So you can look right now in this picture, it's really helpful. You can see there's going to be tabais, which are rings, which we haven't yet talked about. But what we are talking about is the mishpitzais, the settings. That is what the stones go into. So, and the two chains, they attach to the rings. Okay, let's get into some Rashis here. Sharsharais zahav. Just the sharshalais, the equivalent, it just means chains. That's what Rashi is explaining. Migbalais, attached to the edges. L'seif gvul ha'chayshen ta'asaisam. At the edge of the chayshen, you shall make them. Ma'aseh avos, in the manner of cables. In the style of braiding strands, not made with holes and links like those produced for cisterns, but for those made for censers, which are called ansercher in Old French. Okay, made in the style of cables. This is not the place, like I just said before, this is not the place, the section of the command for making of the chains, nor the command of fastening them. The word vitasa stated here is not an imperative expression. And the same thing is the next word of vinasata is also not an imperative expression. Rather, they are only in future tense. This is so because in the chapter of the chayshen, he commands them again concerning making them, the chains, and fastening them. And over there is the real commandment. It is written here only to let you know part of the need for the settings which he commanded you to make with the ephod. He wrote this here for you to inform you that you will need these settings so that when you make chains at the edge of the chayshen, you will place them on these settings. So again, the commandment to actually make the settings that the stones of the chayshen go on is not over here. He's just explaining it over here for what relates to the ephod. Next Rashi. We said this already a few times. It should be a master weaver. You shall make it like the work of the ephod with gold, zahav, tchelas, va'argman, v'seilas, shni, v'sheish, mashzar, v'tasaisa. Gold, blue, purple, crimson wool, twisted fine linen. You should make it. What is a choshen mishpat? So let's look over here. Three things. It's atones for perversion of justice, but actually they would use it to hear the mishpat had three usages. You would hear the words and pleas of the litigants, you would hear the verdict, and the punishment of the judgment, whether the punishment of death or the punishment of lashes or the punishment of monetary payment, all those are included in mishpat, and all those are things that the choshen would clarify. Kemaise ephod, the work of a weaver of 5 kinds of materials. Okay. Ravua yiyeh kaful zeres arkoi v'zeres rachbai. It shall be a square and doubled its length, 1 span of its width, 1 span. You can see what it means by doubled is that actually there was a fold in the choshen. You can see my arrow. And that's actually where the Urim v'Tumim would go. I believe at the end of the Chitas, we talk about the Urim v'Tumim, what exactly that is. It would go in between those things. Okay. Miluas even arba aturim even tur adam pitra uvarekes hatur ha'echad. You shall fill into these settings, into these squares right over here. You shall fill into it stone fillings, 4 rows of stones. 1 row, Adam, Pitda, Reket. Oh, I missed the first one. Adam, Pitma, and Bereket. Sorry, yeah. There's 3 on each. There's 4 rows of 3. So the first one had Adam, Pitda, and Bereket. And you shall fill into it. Since the stones fill the holes of the settings, which are prepared for them, the Torah calls them by an expression of filling. Okay, the second row. What are the 3 stones on the second row? They're Neifech, Sapir, and Yahaloim. The third row, Lesem, Shavoi, and Achlama. And the last row, Vatur Revi'i, Tarshish, Vishoyham, V'Yoshvei. Mushbatzim Zav Yu B'Muluyim. They shall be set in gold in their fillings. Set in gold. The rolls shall be set in gold in their fillings, encircled by settings of gold in the depth. According to the measure of the fullness of the thickness of the stone, shall be the depth of the settings, no less and no more. So basically, it should be a snug fit, the stone fitting in to the gold mishpatzais, which are the settings. Va'avanim tiyim al shmois b'nei Yisrael, and the stones shall be for the names of the sons of Israel. 12 shteim esrei al shmoisam pituchei chaisam ish al shmoi tiyen l'shnei asar shevet, corresponding to their names, similar to the engravings of the seal. Everyone according to his name shall they be for the 12 tribes. Rashi says in the order of their birth. V'asisa al choshen. Next pasuk, v'asisa al choshen sharshes gavlois maisei avos zahav tar. You shall make for the choshen chains at the edges of cable work of pure gold, like we said before. Rashi actually explains over here that the first Rashi is that what the rings were used for, the rings were there to help. In essence, they were on both sides. Where can we find the picture that's right here? You can see the rings over here, 2 rings attached to the choshen, and over here you had rings to attach to the ephod, the straps of the ephod. So those 2 rings is what the cable attached to. What does it mean, sharshois? Rashi says that actually comes from the same word as roots of a tree. Just like roots of a tree hold it and connect it, hold the tree in place, so too that's the point of these, was to hold it, the choshen, in place keneged your heart, like we said in yesterday's chitas. Okay, v'asisa al ha'choshen shtei tabais zov v'nasata shtei tabais al shnei k'tzeis ha'choshen. You shall make for the choshen 2 golden rings. You should place the 2 rings at the 2 ends of the choshen. And what was this for? For the choshen, in order to fix them onto it. It is, however, impossible to say that the 2 golden rings shall be made on the choshen from the outset. Remember we were talking about yesterday, how some things you make with the choshen, with some, like for example, the menorah was fully built all at once. You can't add on those cups later, right? So Rashi is saying over here, how do you know that it's impossible that the ring was supposed to be from the beginning? For if so, what is the meaning of the text? And you shall place the 2 rings. It says, V'nasata eshtei tabais. V'nasata eshtei tabais. What does it mean you shall place it? Are they not already placed on it at the beginning of the verse? So from here we know that you actually add the rings after creating the rest of the stuff. Al shtei k'tzeis ha'choshen, on the 2 corners opposite the neck, on the right and on the left, which are opposite the shoulder straps of the ephod. V'nasata eshtei avoises hazov al shtei atabais al k'tzeis ha'choshen. You shall place the 2 golden cables on the 2 rings at the end of the choshen. These 2 cables. Next pasuk. V'shtei k'tzeis shtei avoises shtei al titain al shtei hamishpetzes v'nasata al kisvei the ephod al mul panav. And the 2 ends of the 2 cables you shall place upon the 2 settings, and these you shall place upon the shoulder straps of the ephod on its front part. Right over here at the front part is where you should attach it, the other end of the gold strings. I'll stay at the 2 ends, the 2 cables, the 2 ends of each. Okay. Let's look at this Rashi right over here. On the shoulder straps of the ephod, 1 setting on this one and 1 on that one. Thus the shoulder straps of the ephod hold up the choshen so that it does not fall, and it suspends on them. Yet the bottom edge of the choshen moves in and out and knocks on the Kohen Gadol's stomach and is not fastened to him well. Therefore, 2 more rings were needed for its lower part. And the Torah now is going to explain what happens. I actually have a picture of what the 2, right here, you can see the 2 lower rings. What are these two lower rings needed for? The upper rings are needed for the gold chain to connect to the ephod. But now we're going to see, right here, you can see this blue, you see this blue belt kind of? And that is exactly what the next pasuk is going to say, what those bottom rings are for. Vasisa shtei tabais zav samtais al shtei k'tzeis ha'choshen al svasa ashar ever ephod biyaisa. You shall make 2 golden rings, and you shall place them in the 2 ends of the choshen on its edge that is towards the inner side of the ephod. And vasisa shtei tabais zav nasatais al shtei kisvei ha'ephod milamata mimul panav le'umas machperetay milamayla l'cheshid ha'ephod. And you shall make 2 golden rings and place them on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod, from below towards its front, adjacent to the seam, above the band of the ephod. That's the top ones. Why do you need the bottom? Why do you need the bottom 2 rings? Here we go. V'yirkisu es ha'choshen mitaba'isav, es taba'is ha'ephod kipsil tcheles lies al cheshev ha'ephod v'lo yizach ha'choshen me'al ha'ephod. And they shall fasten the choshen by its rings to the rings of the ephod with a blue cord, so that it may be upon the band of the ephod, and the choshen will not move off the ephod. So total, we have 3 sets of 2 rings. We have rings at the top to hold the gold chain. We have rings at that's when I say the top, I mean we have rings on the ephod. And then we have rings at the top of the choshen to attach the gold chains to. And then we have rings at the bottom to hold this blue. Right here, you can see the blue string and how it attaches to the rings. Right here, you can see at the bottom of this picture, the blue string, the blue cord that attaches it. Okay. V'nosas Aaron es shmois b'nei Yisrael b'choshen. And Aaron would carry the names of the Bnei Yisrael on the Choshen HaMishpat. Al libay, over his heart, b'vayai al HaKodesh, when he entered the holy Lezikarin lefnei Hashem tamid, as a remembrance before Hashem at all times. V'nasata sa'choshen HaMishpat, and he placed into the Choshen HaMishpat, into this Choshen, as ha'urim ve'es ha'tumim. We're going to explain what that is in Rashi. The Urim and Tumim, like I explained before, the Urim and Tumim went between these two flaps. Or as you can see over here, you see there's two flaps. It would fold, and the Urim and Tumim would go in between it. And it was over Aaron's heart when he came before Hashem. V'nasa Aaron as a mishpat b'nei Yisrael, and Aaron carrying the judgment of the children of Israel, al libay lifnei Hashem tamid, over his heart before Hashem always. The Urim v'Tumim. This refers to the inscription of the explicit name, the Shem HaMeforish, one of the Hashem's name that we don't know today what it was. The Shem HaMeforish. Shayanasan b'seich. Which Moshe would place within the folds of the Choshen, through which it would light up its words and perfect its words. The Urim v'Tumim explains their words, and their predictions never fail. That's what in the Gemara it says. So actually, the stones would light up. In the second temple, in the second temple, there was the Choshen, because it was impossible for the Kohen Gadol to be. We know that for sure the Choshen was there in the second Beis HaMikdash, because the Kohen Gadol was not able to be missing any of his garments. Otherwise, he would not be able to do the service in the Beis HaMikdash. But the name was not inside. This Shem HaMeforish was not inside between the Choshen, the breastplate. And I guess it didn't light up like it did in the first Beis HaMikdash and when they were in the Mishkan. I guess it didn't light up the stones. Because of this name, that was the Shem HaMeforish that was in the Urim v'Tumim, because of that name, it was called judgment. Okay, what does it mean as Mishpat B'nai Yisrael? The last Rashi, the judgment of the children of the Yidden, the solution of the matter about which they are judging and debating, whether or not to do something. According to the Gadik Medrash, that the Choshen atoned for the perverters of justice. It was called judgment because of its forgiveness for the sins of judgment. So either it atones for those who made bad judgments, or it was in the matter of judging. It would judge the Jewish people. It would tell them, like we said in an earlier Rashi, it would say what needs to be done, even including what the punishment should be. Okay, that's today's Chumash. It was all about the Choshen pretty much, and about the golden chain that holds the Choshen and connects it to the ephod. And it was also talking about the blue cord that you connect to make sure that it sits nicely on the Kohen, and also the Urim v'Tumim, the fold, that there was a fold in the Choshen HaMishpat, and that's where the Urim v'Tumim with Hashem's name was inside. All right, let's go to the Tanya. Okay, we're going to continue in the Tanya. Well, let's do a little recap over here from Chabad.org provides. Since every Jew has a divine soul, and since the commandment to love one's fellow Jew is based on the essential unity of all the souls, right? They all come from Hashem. from the same source, it follows that this commandment applies to every Jew without exception. In fact, however, we find the Talmud exhorting us to hate certain fellow Jews. How do we reconcile these apparent contradictory requirements? The Alter Rebbe proceeds to clarify. Okay, what it says in the Gemara, mitzvah listen isai v'gam leimer l'rabbi sheyisinai ehu hainu b'chaveri b'teir b'mitzvahs. This that the Talmud says, that if one sees a friend doing an avera, he should hate him, and he should also tell his teacher, so that his teacher will hate him. How does this work with what we just said before? This applies only to one's companion, one's equal, in the study of Torah and mitzvahs. The sinner in question is a Torah observant scholar, but it has elapsed in this one instance. In this case, his sin is much more severe than usual. We're not talking about a regular sinner. We're talking about somebody on a lofty level, and he, a scholar who made a mistake just this one time. A scholar, it says, even his inadvertent misdeeds of a scholar are as grave as deliberate sins of a regular person. Still, that doesn't answer our question fully. But even this general assumption of the gravity of his conduct is not sufficient cause to hate him. Alter Rebbe explains there's another condition that must be first satisfied. Kfar kiyum by mitzvah heicheach teichiach es amisecha, and you've already fulfilled the commandment of you shall rebuke your friend. First, you have to tell your friend. First, you have to tell him amisecha. The word used here for your friend, she'itcha. What is the word actually? Somebody who is on par with you. And b'teira b'mitzvahs. Va'afal pikein lo yishav mechatai k'moshe kasav b'sefer charedim. So first, it has to be somebody who's on your level. Second, you have to do the mitzvah of haicheach techiach. Haicheach techiach is the mitzvah of, you have to first tell your friend, show your friend the correct way. And if still the person did not correct his ways, then it might fall into the category of somebody that you should hate, whatever that means. But one who is not your companion, he's not your equal in Torah and mitzvahs, not only are you not allowed to hate him, on the contrary, you must strive to become closer to him. Hine al zeh Omer Hillel Azaken Heve mitalmidev shel Aaron Oyev Shalem V'roidev Shalem. The rest of the verses is V'roidev Shalem. You should love peace and pursue peace. Oyev esabriyos u'mekarvan laTorah. You should love creatures, Hashem's creatures, and draw them near to the Torah. Leimar, even those who may be far from God's Torah and His service, that's why they're called just briyos ba'alma, just creatures. It indicating, it's not saying like there's other terms that are more endearing. But this, we're just talking about even somebody who's just briyos, just creatures, ba'alma, only, even those we need to oyev, we must love them, and we must mekarvan laTorah, draw them near to Torah. Let's continue with tzarach lemashcham b'chavle avoisam ava. We must bring them with the strong cords of ahava, of love. V'kulei hai v'ula yachal lekarvan laTorah v'avodas Hashem. perhaps thereby one will be able, after all, to draw them close to the Torah and the service of God. V'heim loy. And if one fails, loy hifzeh tzchar mitzvah avas reim. You still have the mitzvah of brotherly love or neighborly love, just from your efforts. V'gam hamikuravim elav. Even those whom elav v'yichichai. Let's actually read the whole thing. V'gam hamikuravim elav v'yichicham v'loishavu ma'avinaisam shemitzvahs nisaynam mitzvah la'ava gam kain. Even those that you tried and you did heichicham, you tried rebuking them and explaining them the correct way, and they still didn't do it, you still have an obligation to love them as well. But one second, you also have, we said before, you have the mitzvah to hate them. So how can you have both? So ushteim him emes. Both the love and the hatred that you're supposed to have are both emes. Sina mitzad hara shebehem. The hatred is not of them at all. It's about the evil that they are doing. Va'ava mebchinas hatoiv hagonus shebehem. And the love is the good that's hidden in them. That's the godly soul in them, that is the nitzitz elikis, the godly spark within them that gives chayas, that gives life, that animates the nefesh elikis. So just in general, when using the words, you have to be careful to say that it's the actions, it's the thing that where you're doing, it's the manifestation of what's going on that you're hating, or that you, if that's the right word, that you're would like to correct. But the love that you have for this person, that is for the good in them. That's for the soul in them. That is for the kedusha in them. V'gam la'ira rachman b'libay aleha. One must also arouse compassion on the divine soul of the person who's doing something bad, of the sinner. For in the case of the wicked, this divine soul is in exile within the sitra achra, which is dominating this person. The compassion, mivatelis hasina, it banishes the hatred, and arouses the love. So although you might have these conflicting reactions to somebody who's doing something bad, right? The actual bad thing that they're doing you hate, and the actual good, but the good in them you love. So the rachmanis, the compassion that you have for the person, actually will be the deciding factor to arouse the love and banish the hatred that you have. Like it says in the pasuk, Yaakov asher pada es Avram, Yaakov who redeems Abraham. Let's actually read over here what that means. Thank God for the boxes of the Chabad.org. Jacob represents compassion and Abraham love. When Abraham meaning love, must be redeemed, brought out of concealment, it is Jacob that accomplishes this redemption. For as it states, compassion banishes hatred and arouses love. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so what is the pasuk saying? Yaakov asher pada es Avraham, Yaakov which redeems Avraham, right? This is exactly what we were just saying. Rachmanes, compassion, is what banishes hatred and brings and arouses love. Just like Yaakov represents compassion and Abraham represents love. So compassion is what redeems love, what reveals it. Yaakov pada es Abraham. V'loi amar David HaMelech, olav hashalom, tachlis sina sinesim, ela alaminim v'apikursim. The Alter Rebbe says, what does David mean when he says, I hate them with a consummate hatred? No love at all, just hatred. What is David HaMelech talking about? He's talking about heretics. And remember, in order to be a Napikairis, it's not an easy level to become a heretic. You can't just become a heretic. There's a qualification that first you have to be knowledgeable in all of in the Torah, very knowledgeable in the Torah, and only then you've known Hashem, and still yet you push him away. So it's not your everyday Joe. So that's what David HaMelech was saying. Those types of people who have no part, she'ein lahem chelek be'elokei Yisrael, those are the people that he was going with true hatred. Okay, let's do a quick recap of the Tanya. The Alter Rebbe said, okay, but what does it mean? We talked about this love that you have to have for the person, but we see it says in the Gemara that there are also those that you're supposed to hate. What does that mean? How can you have both? So the Alter Rebbe explains that actually there's two parts. It's not a zero-sum game. When you see somebody doing something wrong, and by the way, this caveats of that it must be somebody equal to you and somebody that you've already tried to fix. And even then, you try to already explain them the right way. And even then, what are we saying that you should hate is just the thing that they're doing, the action that they're doing, or the aspect that's negative. But you should still love their pnimius, their inner elikus. And then the Alter Rebbe explains that actually compassion, rachmanis, will help us focus on the good. Focus on the love for your friend. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's Tanya and Chumash as much as I did. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
You too. And yes, I did enjoy it.
Thank you.
You.